Alright, hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In this one we're going to go over Monday Night Football. It is two games, Monday October 20th, Tampa Bay versus Detroit and Houston versus Seattle. And as you can see, the opening odds are on the screen. Tampa Bay opens at plus 150 versus Detroit. Detroit opens at minus 180. And we're going to go over how these odds apply to what's going on now. And we're going to go over the next game in a moment, but we're going to start with Tampa Bay versus Detroit. And we also have the current odds here based off FD, and we have the splits right here and right in front of us, but we have it all in our notes. We will go over that in a moment, but let's go over the spread real quick. Tampa Bay open, these are opening odds, plus 3.5, minus 110, minus 3.5, 3.5, 3.5 point favorites for the Lions at minus 110 cost even for both teams. And the totals, opening at over 49.5, under 49.5, both even, minus 110 cost. And let's see where we are now. All right, plus 225 for Tampa Bay, a long way from plus 150. Minus 275, a long way from minus 180. And that's where they start on the money. Well, that's where they are currently on the money line, that is. Now they're 5.5 point favorites. Detroit Lions are at minus 120 cost. And 5.5 point underdogs are Tampa Bay, therefore they are minus 102 cost. Over under 53.5 points. 53.5 points. Over is getting the minus 105. Under is getting minus 115 cost. And monitor how those adjust throughout the day. Just letting you know, the totals are very tricky because those fluctuate more than the spread or the money line, of course. Especially when you head toward a game starting, an event starting. So you may want to watch out. For example, this minus 105 could turn into minus 112 at the last moment, while spiking, let's say, to 70%, for example, just for example, if spiking to 70%, then you may have to consider going with that over if you previously went with that under at a higher cost at minus 115 when it was getting, let's say, about 43, 44, 45%. But yeah, you just monitor which way those odds fluctuate, and you will have more success, especially on the totals. But let's go over the notes. All right, we just went over the opening odds and the current odds, same as what I just went over. But let's go over the expected value. We're gonna analyze the odds in a moment. Expected value. The opening odds plus 150, minus 178, minus 180, excuse me, gives Tampa Bay 38% win percentage and 62% win percentage on the opening. That gives Tampa Bay a negative $5 expected value and Detroit a negative $3.56 expected value. An expected value is a measure of what a bettor can expect to win or lose on each bet placed on the same odds time and time again. And on the Patreon today, I will have the expected value, the positive expected value betting. More than likely props only. Positive expected value you may want to look into for tonight's games. But currently, expected value, well, win percentage, 30% for Tampa Bay, 70% for Detroit. That is based off the plus 225, minus 275 here. And that gives Tampa Bay a negative $2.50 expected value, and that gives Detroit a negative $4.55 expected value. Let's go down a little bit. Hold on, move up. All right, let's go over the splits currently. The picks and the props will be on the Patreon as well. But this is just the data I use to analyze. We'll also add a little bit more data throughout the day, but let's stick to what we have here. 28% percentage of bets on the money line, 28%, 72% for Detroit on the money line. 29%, so 28%, 29% of the money going in Tampa Bay's favor, 71% going in Detroit's favor. 74% of the betting going in Tampa Bay's favor on the spread, that is 5.5 points favoring Detroit. And 26% going with Detroit. 67% of the money going with the Buccaneers, and 33% going with Detroit. Over percentage of betting is getting 43%. Under is getting 57% percentage of money. Over is getting 63%, and under is getting 37% Currently, this is early Monday morning. Early Monday morning. Keep that in mind. Now, let's go over where the odds have moved throughout the week. All right. Scroll down here. All right. Right here, moneyline odds. Plus 220 on Wednesday, 10:15. Plus 220 for Tampa Bay. Currently, they're at plus 225. Minus 270 for Detroit. Currently, they're at minus 275. 23% of the betting at that time. 29% of the money at that time going in Tampa Bay's favor. 77% of the betting and 71% of the money going in Detroit's favor. Sunday, 10:19. Plus 235 for Tampa Bay. Now, I do go much deeper than this, but this is what I record in the video. I don't want the video to get too long, and that's why I'll go over this here. Plus 235 to minus 290 for Detroit on Sunday. Completely different. Well, not completely different. Higher than it was on Wednesday and higher than it is now for both teams in their respective directions. 27% betting percentage going in favor of Tampa Bay. 22% in favor of Tampa Bay on the money. 73% of the betting in favor of Detroit on the betting. 78% of the money in favor of Detroit. And currently, they are 28 and 29. Okay, 72 and 71%. So they've dropped a little bit on the money since yesterday. 7% as of now. Now the spread. 5.5 points throughout the week is still 5.5 points. Minus 105 costs going with the Buccaneers on the spread. 78% and 77% on the money. 78% betting. 22% on the betting. 23% of the money going with Detroit. All right. Sunday, 75% betting going with Tampa Bay. 68% money going with Tampa Bay. 25% betting going with Detroit. And 32% money going with Detroit. All right. Total odds movements. Over under. Currently, it is increased to 53.5 now. And more than likely, that is to entice you to remain on the unders. On the under in this one. Let's see, the under is getting 37%, 57% of the betting though. Okay, so the under is decreasing on the money drastically from 54 on Wednesday to 48 on Sunday to now 37% currently. To now 37% currently. So, and the under hasn't, hold on, what was the cost on the under here? Okay, the under has increased in cost as well. If that holds up, the under looks safe in this one. But let me excuse me, let me go over the Wednesday 10:15. 34% going with over, 52.5 minus 110 even cost, 46% of the money, 66% betting going under, 54% money going under. Sunday, over 37%, 52.5 points minus 110 cost, 52% money going over. Under 52.5 minus 110 cost, getting 63%, 48% money going under on Sunday the 19th. Yesterday. Now, if you see them continue to raise that cost, now this is still early in the day, and they're raising the cost. You see it's now from 52 to 53 now in less than a day. It was 52 on Sunday. And the money has decreased to 37%. And the betting has decreased as well, but the cost has increased. If that trend holds up, go with the under. But the way they're raising these totals, they're enticing you to bet that under, bet the under, bet the under. And the over looks decent in this one. They're enticing you to bet that under. Bet the under, bet the under. But they are expecting a pretty high scoring game, so it is risky to go with that over. Watch what they do with those costs on that total. If the over gets more higher cost late, definitely go with that over. If the percentage for the under stays the same or continues to decrease while the cost remains high, go with the under. But money line, it decreased from 290 to 275 while going down in value. Which is why I say in this type of situation, you want to look at how low the underdog went. They went from 235 to 225. That decreased while increasing to 29% from 22%. 29% of the money to 22% of the money yesterday. And their odds have decreased. Which is why you have to open the door and look at Tampa Bay to get this victory in this one. Now, this happened a lot last year. The odds were the same. Tampa Bay went to Detroit, and Tampa Bay won, and the odds went very similarly throughout the week, and the odds look very similar to where they are now, plus 225, minus 275. Tampa Bay ended up winning that game. I'm not saying that's going to happen again, but the way the odds are moving, it could happen that way again. But the only thing you have to look at the spread, minus 120. Minus 120. That has remained consistent from Sunday, minus 120. Here, 32% of the money, 33% of the money now. But people betting heavily on this one, on Tampa Bay, 67% and 74% of the betting. If that holds up, Detroit could win this game. More than likely, the 74 and 67% in favor of Tampa Bay is more than likely going to decrease slightly. They may end up at 69, 66, maybe 68% betting on Tampa Bay and 60, let's say 64, 61, 62% on Tampa Bay. And that's where you want to look at what happens with this cost, minus 102. What happens with that cost? And you just need to monitor from there. If that goes up, wow, if that goes to plus 100, let's say, and this goes to minus 122, you may want to consider going with Tampa Bay at that plus 100. But if it increases at all, go with Detroit across the board in that instance. But let's go to the next game. All right. Houston versus Seattle, plus 102 opening money line for Houston. Seattle, minus 122. All right, spread. 1.5 point favorites opening, minus 110 cost for Houston, minus 110 cost for Seattle. Total, over 44.5, minus 110 cost, under 44.5, minus 110 cost. And let's get started with the decode. All right, props will be on the Patreon as well. All right, currently Houston is at plus 150, minus 178 for Seattle on the money line. 3-point favorites are the Seahawks, plus 3 at minus 104 for Houston on the spread, minus 3.3-point favorites at minus 118 cost for the Seahawks. Over under relatively low, 41.5 points, minus 105 going over, minus 115 going under. Now, minus 115, minus 105 over, minus 115 under. All right. Let's see where these odds are now. Let's go over the expected value. All right. Based off the opening, plus 102, minus 122. That's a 47% win percentage for Houston, 53% win percentage for Seattle. That gives Houston a negative $5.06 expected value. And that gives Seattle a negative $3.56 expected value. Currently, based off the plus 150, minus 178, 38% win percentage for Houston, 62% win percentage for Seattle. That gives Houston a negative $5 expected value. That gives Seattle a negative $3.17 expected value. Now, where this looks dangerous is Houston has a lot of value to the sports books as of currently, despite dropping 9% in win percentage from opening odds to the current odds. They're still over $5 or over. So, with that being said, Houston looks dangerous in this one. Let me scroll down. And of course, expected value, the formula is right there. The definition is right there. The picks will be on the Patreon, as well as the props and the positive expected value betting. All right, percentage of bets. 13% of the betting in favor of Houston, 87% in favor of Seattle. 21% of the money in favor of Houston, 79% in favor of Seattle. Spread percentage of bets, 36% in favor of Houston, 64% in favor of Seattle. Percentage of money on the spread, 33% in favor of Houston. This is currently, by the way, 67% in favor of Seattle. Total percentage of betting over, that is over 41.5, is getting 69% of the betting, 31% going under. Over is getting 67% of the money, 33% is going under. Now, let me scroll up. Hold on. All right. Just checking something real quick. My bad. Just checking something real quick. Now, odds movements. Let's go over the movements. Houston plus 150 minus 178. Houston plus 150 minus 178. Houston plus 150 minus 178 throughout this whole week on the money line. 16% of the betting going in favor of Houston on Wednesday, 14% money. 84% in favor of Seattle, 86% money. 12% in favor of Houston on Sunday, 10-19, 16% money. 88% betting on Seattle, 84% on the money. All right, now what you want to look out for is, in this one is they're going to adjust. That's a good thing. It has been deadlocked at this plus 150, minus 178. It is going to adjust. The question is which way for each team. All right. Currently, they are at 13 and 21%. Okay, 13 and 21% is Houston. So they've increased for sure on the money throughout the week. They're now at 21% on the money. But Seattle's odds are not increasing. And that's what's bothersome, because their money is decreasing, but their odds are staying the same at minus 178. That is dangerous for a home favorite to be in the negative this long and not increase, especially since they're getting such a large percentage of the money. Now, if you look at, say they increase. If Seattle increases, go with Seattle in this game. The question is, especially toward game time, think like a sharp sort of heavy bettors that bet late. Think like a sharp. If they go up in odds at all on the money line, Seattle's going to win this game. If they stay the same or go down, then you need to really consider Houston, especially based off the money is slightly increasing for Houston, but the odds are not increasing for Seattle. Not a guarantee there. So you may need to watch how those odds adjust for Seattle. It's all about how the Seattle odds adjust at that minus 178 versus where the splits are. Spread. Odds movements. Wednesday. Currently, Houston. Well, we're going to start with currently. Currently, 3-point favorites are Seattle at minus 118 cost. All right, yesterday, 3-point favorites at minus 118 cost. 38% betting in favor of Houston, 33% on the money. 62% betting in favor of Seattle on the spread, 67% money on the spread. Odds movements, 10-15. 35% betting in favor of Houston, 41% money in favor of Houston. 65% betting in favor of Seattle, 59% money in favor of Seattle. All right, let's see where okay, 59, 67. Let's go over where the splits are currently. All right, 59 and 67. Okay, now they're still at 67. Still at 67, okay. And 64 and 67. So they increased in money and dropped a percentage on the spread. All right. 118 here, and that cost is still relatively high. These kinds of games, you have to look at the spread because it's not all that much odds movements throughout the week. Not very much at all. Because Tampa Bay's odds could easily go back up to where they were on Wednesday, quite easily. So you got to focus on the spreads a little bit more in these kinds of games. All right, 3.5 point favorites to 3-point favorites in the higher cost going with Seattle. All right, 67% now. If you see Seattle's odds, the cost on their odds on the spread, drop below that of the Houston Texans, then Seattle will lose this game. On the spread, that is. Because it's not going to happen on the money line, but on the spread. So, if you see their odds cost, so for example, if this minus 118 turns into minus 108 versus Houston's minus 112, then you might want to consider going Houston across the board, obviously. But as it currently stands, the only thing holding on to Seattle in this one is that spread. But Houston could definitely take this one based off what's happening with the money line. So this is tricky. You got to analyze the odds late for this type of game because the odds have not moved very much at all. But the splits are increasing in money for Houston. So you might want to consider taking a hard look at what happens with the favorites, and that will determine, especially on the spread, and that will determine what happens in these games, what happens with the costs on the spread versus the splits versus the money line versus what's going to happen on the money line, because the money line is not really giving you all that much other than, you know, this team's a favorite, this team's a dog, but it's not moving, which makes the underdog very dangerous. That makes the underdog picks very dangerous, especially when the splits are very high for a favorite, a home favorite at that, but the odds aren't increasing. You have to think like a bookie. If Seattle's going to win this game, you're going to want more higher cost on that favorite to make more money, obviously. Over under 41.5, minus 105 going over, minus 115 going under. On Wednesday, it was 40.5. Sunday, 41.5. Wednesday, minus 112 cost going over, minus 108 cost going under 40.5 on Wednesday, 10-15. 72% betting in favor of the over, 77% money in favor of the over, 28% betting in favor of the under, 23% of the money in favor of the under. Over 70% of the betting and 70% of the money on Sunday. Under is getting 30% betting and 30% money. Currently, they are 31-33 going under, 69-67 in favor of the under. All right, minus 105, minus 115, minus 105, minus 115. Let's see. Still the same thing from yesterday. Not much different in the percentages. That is a very low total, which is why the over is getting a large percentage on the money. I would challenge the public and go with that under in this one, just based off that. But monitor what happens with that minus 105 and minus 115 cost. If you see that whichever one has the higher cost by game time, go with that pick. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. You guys take care. Pray every day. I've been Scott. Join the Patreon. Link is in the description and in the video for all picks, props, and everything you need. But yeah, you guys take care.